Chapter 11. Confrontation. Larry sits at the bar nursing a beer. The week is finally over. Not that that means anything, of course. There's still a horrible tree monster in the gully, consuming and assimilating anything that crosses its path. He still has to lie to Penn about what's going on. He supposes he could tell her the truth. Many of the other officers have probably spilled the beans to their loved ones, but he doesn't want to corrupt her blissful ignorance. Everyone in town will know soon enough, and then everyone in the world. For now, he tries to enjoy what little reprieve he can get. Someone sits down next to him. It's the man from the day they went to dig up the lump. Tim, if Larry remembers right. He doesn't want to chance it, so he just says, "Oh, hey." Tim looks at him and smiles politely. "Rough day?"
"Rough week."
"You're telling me." Larry chuckles.
"How's your leg?"
Tim orders a shot from the bartender. "You'll dried up. That friend of yours a doctor?" Larry laughs.
"I think he used to be a vet."
"Really? What branch?"
"Veterinarian."
"Glad I didn't know that before." Larry laughs. The bartender gives Tim his drink. He picks it up and swirls it around in the glass. "You ever find that teddy bear?" Larry clears his throat. Tim risked his life the other day trying to fight the monster. He isn't a cop or a scientist, but he's in the muck with the rest of them.
"Difficult to say,"
he responds. Tim raises an eyebrow. "I don't like the sound of that." Larry sips his beer.
"Me neither."
"Well," Tim sighs, raising his glass, "here's to eradication." Larry doesn't like the sound of that word, but he drinks to it anyway. Tim orders another shot, and one for Larry, who didn't really want one. He leans back in his chair and grunts. "Saw something weird the other day."
"Oh?"
"Your friend, the veterinarian, and that woman." He pulls out his phone and shows Larry a picture of Megan carrying a container draped in cloth out of the back of the animal shelter. "Any idea what's in there?" Larry swallows the frog in his throat.
"She's a biology student," he says. "Probably just some animal she needs for a project."
"Can't argue with that," says Tim. He flips to another picture of a man entering the front of the building, carrying a cage containing a raccoon. He zooms in on the photo, showing a gnarly tumor sprouting from the raccoon's face. Larry feels a twinge of betrayal. One of them should have said something if they found another instance of the flesh. Then again, maybe it's just a wild animal with a tumor.
"What were you doing at the shelter?" he asks.
"Bird watching."
"Oh?"
"Point is," says Tim, "y'all are dealing with something big. Bigger than you or me, bigger than the police, bigger than the town even."
"We have everything under control."
"Now, I'm sure you'd like to keep it that way."
"What are you getting at?"
10,000.
"What?"
"And that's all I need."
"Or what? You'll post a picture of some sick raccoon on the internet? I don't get it."
Tim laughs and slips the phone into his pocket. He throws back the shot and stands. "You have my number."
"Wait," says Larry. "Why are you coming to me with this?"
Tim sits back down. "You seem reasonable."
"What makes you think I have 10 grand lying around?"
"Y'all have everything under control, right?"
"You know I could arrest you right here."
"You can't,
and you won't."
Larry feels his balls drop.
"This greedy motherfucker," he thinks.
He stands up, takes the shot Tim bought for him, and throws it back.
"Let's go outside."
Tim gets up and follows him out the front door, where Larry turns to him. There's a considerable height difference between them, so Larry has to stare up into the man's hairy nostrils.
"Listen," he says. "I've got enough shit to deal with, alright? I don't give two flying fucks about what you think you saw, let alone $10,000. An alien monster sprouts out from the ground, nearly kills your sorry ass, threatens to drag this whole town into hell, and all you can think of is how you can make a quick buck off the situation? Kiss my ass."
He turns around and starts walking toward his car.
"You'll regret this,"
Tim calls after him. Larry ignores it and climbs into his car. As a younger man, he might have felt supremely satisfied with how he handled that, but today it just leaves him feeling sick. The adrenaline makes his booze-addled brain swim, and he realizes that he's in no state to drive. He'd have to give himself a ticket. He sits back in the seat and looks out the window. Tim seems to have left, thank God. Pulls out his phone to call a rideshare, but stops himself. He'll be able to drive just fine once he calms down. There's no way he's over the legal limit after a few drinks. Besides, the world is ending either way. He starts the engine and pulls out. Not many cars on the road today, thankfully. He drives on past the police station and the grocery store. After that comes the school zone, which he wants to avoid, so he turns left onto a heavily forested street. A minute or two later, he catches a glimpse of something in his periphery. He slows down and peers out into the trees. There's something there just off the road. Looks like a person wandering among the oaks. She steps rhythmically from tree to tree in some sort of strange waltz with nature. He pulls up close to her, rolls down the passenger side window, and calls out. She swivels around to face him, startled. Her clothes are dirty and torn, and her hair is full of clumps of mud and leaves. She stands there, staring at him, looking for all the world like a wild animal.
"Are you all right, ma'am?"
He calls to her. She continues to stare at him for a few seconds, then quickly shakes her head. Larry pulls out his badge and flashes it to her.
"Come a little closer, it's all right."
She takes a few tentative steps forward, then suddenly runs up to the side of the car, peering in through the open window. A rotten smell emanates from her, far beyond bad breath or BO. Larry plugs his nostrils and rolls down the driver's side window for air. The woman looks around the inside of the car in jerky, bird-like movements. Larry finds himself praying that she's just having a bad trip.
"Do you know where you are?"
he asks her. She stares at him for an uncomfortably long moment. "No."
"Do you want to go home?"
"Home," she repeats. "No."
"Where is your home?"
She gives him a curious look. "Among the fallen leaves."
"What's your name?"
"Name."
"Yes. Do you have a name?"
"No." "Oh, fuck," he thinks.
"Do you want to get into the car? I can take you to the station, get you cleaned up."
"Cleaned up at the station?"
"Yes," says Larry. "Can you open the door?"
"Yes." She opens the door and slides into the passenger seat. The smell is overwhelming.
"Now shut the door."
She shuts the door and turns to look at him. "Name," she says. "What's your name?"
"My name is Larry."
"My name is not Larry."
"Go figure."
The woman leans close to him and suddenly sticks out her tongue. Before he can react, she licks the side of his neck, sliding her tongue up to his earlobe and biting it. "Fuck!" Larry shouts, slapping her instinctively. She releases him and sits back in her seat, blood on her lips. Larry pulls a napkin out of the center console and holds it against the wound. "My name is not Larry," the woman repeats. That's when he sees it. A dark gray, pulsing mass just under her left ear. It had been concealed by her muddy hair up until now. He wants to cry at the sight of it. He reaches for his gun. She looks at him. "Cleaned up at the station, Larry." He pauses.
"You bit me."
"Bit." She gnashes her teeth. Clack, clack.
"What the hell?"
"Bite." She leans toward him once again.
"No," he cries.
"Yes," she protests. She leans in to bite him again. He fires at her stomach. She jerks backward. He can see her screaming, but can't hear over the sharp ringing in his ears. He fires again, directly at the fleshy nodule on her neck. She falls limply against the door. Larry takes a deep breath and puts the gun down, shaking. He breathes for a while, head numb with adrenaline, then opens his mouth and screams into the trees. He sits there for some time, asking himself what to do. He should call the chief, but Isaacs has so much on her plate already. He could go dump the body in the woods, but if it was found by the wrong people, they would trace the bullets back to his gun. He should really call the chief. In the end, what's one more body? Chances are this woman is just a vagrant anyway. He decides to check. He gingerly feels her pockets for a wallet, some form of identification, but there is none. Maybe she dropped her purse in the forest. If she did and Larry left it there, it could create even more problems, but if he gets out to check, someone might come along and see the body in the car. He takes a deep breath and holds it for 5 seconds, deciding finally to call the chief. He pulls out his phone and shakily begins to dial. It rings for several moments. Hi, you've reached Jennifer Isaacs. If this is an emergency, please hang up and dial 911. Otherwise, leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Larry leaves a message.
Hey, Chief, this is Palladino. It's urgent. Call back ASAP. Thanks.
He hangs up. What's he supposed to do now? If Isaacs doesn't call back within the next few minutes, he'll have no choice but to dump the body and come back for it later. But what about the blood? It's all over the console, the door, soaking into the seat. He'll have to get the interior completely redone. He feels another scream coming, but pushes it back down into his gut. No need to draw unnecessary attention. He takes another deep breath and gets out of the car. From outside, the car looks like a crime scene.
It is a crime scene, he reminds himself.
The woman's head is bent back awkwardly, staring up at him. The first thing he does is close her bloodshot eyes. He then opens the passenger door, letting the body flop out onto the pavement so he can drag it to the back. It's incredibly difficult maneuvering all those limp joints into the gap behind the seats. Luckily, she wasn't a very heavy woman. He pops the trunk and digs through a pile of books and water bottles until he finds a blanket he can use to cover the body. Now he needs to clean the blood out of the interior. There are no cleaning supplies in the trunk, but there are a couple of spare shirts. He does his best to clean the mess using the shirts and a bottle of water. In the end, the windshield is clouded by the odd streak here and there, but the blood is no longer visible. He lays the last spare shirt over the blood stain on the seat and tucks the soiled ones under the blanket with the corpse. He swallows vomit. He gets back into the driver's seat and starts the car.
What do you do with a dead body? Cut it up?
He starts to feel panicked again. The rotten smell of the infection is crawling up into his sinuses, clouding every thought. He remembers something the professor said about incineration being the only way to kill the flesh. The animal shelter might have an incinerator. He pulls out his phone and dials Ben. It rings for a while, and Larry's afraid he won't answer, but he does.
Gopher, Ben. Hey, Ben. Did you just say gopher?
You got me, what's up?
I need a favor.
What kind of favor?
I need to use the animal shelter's incinerator.
We don't have an incinerator. Larry curses away from the phone.
You don't? What do you do with the dead animals?
We send them to a company up on the hill. What do you need an incinerator for?
I'd rather not say over the phone. Can you meet me?
Where?
600 South, half a mile off Main. It's an emergency.
You got it.
Hurry.